All appears not well within the rank and file of the ruling APC as some members call for the sack of the national chairman, Adams Oshiomhole, coupled with the crack in the presidency over the leaked memo from the NSC on the president's chief of staff, Abba Kyari. And for the first time since the Supreme Court judgment on Bayelsa governorship election, Mr. David Lyon of the APC has spoken. Find out his reactions. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Okimalea, Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos. It's a 1 hour drive on the show tonight. So hold tight everyone as I drive you through on some of the conversation we shall be having tonight on the program. Some of your major stories that you're talking about, perhaps that you're talking during the break at work and when you're in the vehicle on your way home. Tonight, get a seat and let's get started. First, let's tell you about what Mr. David Lyon has said. He's broken his silence since about a week after the Supreme Court gave the verdict, upsetting his chances and dashing his hopes of becoming the next governor of Bayelsa State before Mr. Duoye Diri was sworn in. Mr. Lyon says he's a law-abiding citizen of Nigeria and would never support or direct anyone to be engaged in acts inimical to the progress and well-being of the same people he seeks to govern. Mr. Lyon pointed out that there are different stakeholders in politics and that they also reserve their inalienable rights to their opinions on issues surrounding their well-being and also at liberty to their expressions, emphasizing that anybody who knows him can attest to the fact that he is a peace-loving person, which was evident in the last governorship elections, and respects civil, legal, and democratic processes involved in resolving issues. He went further to say in a statement earlier released today that the court is the last hope of the common man, disclosing that since the development, he has rather been preoccupied with exploring all legal processes involved in exercising his legal right as a citizen of this country and addressing the unfortunate, or what he referred to as an unfortunate incident. He said he's sad that some mischief makers have seized on the opportunity of his silence to perpetrate all kinds of evil intentions and actions in the guise of expressing their grievances and have created unnecessary and avoidable circumstances in the political history of Bayelsa State and the country. I will introduce my panel tonight for the first segment of the program on what we shall be discussing. But first, there are some other stories I'd like you to know. Get seated and get updated on our political roundup.
Five months after being sworn in as Speaker of the Bayelsa State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Monday Obolu has today resigned as Speaker, and he explains the reasons that prompted his resignation. Immediately after his resignation, Honorable Bernard Kenebai then moved the motion for the Deputy Speaker of the Bayelsa State House of Assembly to occupy the vacant seat of the Speaker. What will happen to the All Progressives Congress at the end of President Buhari's second tenure? That question is what is giving some members of the party sleepless nights. And to answer that question, the Forum of All Progressives Congress aspirants is seeking reform within the party to enable it to survive beyond 2023. This is part of the resolutions reached by the aspirants at the end of their National Executive Council meeting in Abuja. While clarifying their call for reform, the group says it has nothing to do with the call for the removal of anyone from office, including the national chairman, Adams Oshiomhole. Meanwhile, for another political party, the issue of the nation's security is the cause for concern. Members of the Young Progressives Party have staged a peaceful protest in front of the National Assembly, demanding a restructuring of the nation's security architecture. Led by its national chairman, Bishop Amakiri, the party is also asking the leadership of the National Assembly to ensure electoral reform that will restore the confidence of the electorate.
Let's begin our conversation and major the discussion for tonight. There is a crack in the presidency. There is yet no word from President Muhammadu Buhari nor his office over the leaked memo from the office of his national security advisor, Babangana Mongono. It appears to be an uneasy calm in the presidency. Crack, that's what we perhaps will refer to it. Regarding the revelation of a spat between the chief of staff to the president, Abba Kyari, and the National Security Advisor, retired Major General Babangana Mongono. In a leaked memo dated December 2019 and sent to the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, with the President and the Chief of Staff as well as some ministers in copy, the NSA accused the President's Chief of Staff of usurping the powers of the President and interfering on issues of national security. General Mongono explains that many gains recorded in the effort to secure the nation and being undermined owing to the interventions of Mr. Kyari, who allegedly presides over meetings with service chiefs and heads of security agencies and diplomatic officials in the absence of the NSA. He therefore directed the security chiefs not to take orders from the chief of staff, as he is not the head of the security forces, neither as he was swore to an oath to defend the country. Sources in the presidency, however, have kept me mum over the matter on China television, attempting to get the response. The leaked memo is what you can see right there on your screen. Of course, a letter reported to have been written from the office of the NSA to some members of cabinet and some service chiefs. You might be asking yourself one big question. Who is Abba Kyari, Chief of Staff to the President? What are his roles? He's a major man behind the President, perhaps behind the hand on scene, controlling the affairs in the presidency. He's the one that is in charge of the President's daily itinerary and schedule. He's the man who tells you what the President will do on a daily basis. Does he have a role to play in the Nigerian constitution? Maybe not stated, but his role is very vital. Is he a member of the cabinet? You see him there in the cabinet. Does he have the power to act on behalf of the president? Of course, as he stated in his duties. But the question the NSA is asking, or the pose that the NSA has raised in that leaked memo, is how his role affects the security of the country, because he says that without the NSA, Mr. Kyari holds meeting behind his back. Let's talk about this and what it means for our security. I have joining me tonight Mr. Kasim Afegbua, a member of the PDP and a former spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization. I'm with him there in Abuja studio. He's an APC chieftain and former lawmaker, Mr. Cletus Auburn. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight. A lot of people will say this is long coming. In fact, this is not a letter written in February, nor was it written in January. It was dated December 2019. That means it's probably things have been, this kind of situation have been happening maybe by the mid of this year or earlier. Mr. Afegbua, your party has spoken and said, look, it's buttress what they have been saying, that there is a problem in the presidency. But would it be fair to say that there is a problem with this leaked memo?
Thank you, Sheung. I think without belaboring the facts, you should understand that when there is disconnections, dislocations in a system, you are bound to have discordant tunes from principal actors who represent specific responsibilities of the cabinet and of the office of the president and the country. I think the fact that a leak memo or a letter or a memo written by the National Security Advisor is being leaked to the public means that there is no coordination, there's no sense of organization in the presidency, as it were, and by extension, it means it confirms the public perception that there are too many power blocks in the presidency. You have, they call it cabal, and within the cabal, there are different categories. We have the one represented by the president's uncle, we have the one represented by friends of the president, we have the one represented by the chief of staff, and with this memo now, one represented by the NSA. But I think it's quite, disappointing that we have been saying that this presidency is not coordinated. And this was evident earlier in his first term when we were having issues of herders and farmers clashes in Benue. There were 4 different positions canvassed by 4 principal actors of the presidency. One, the NSA, gave a different reason why there was herders farmers clash. The then Minister for Defense gave a different reason. The IG, the former IG, gave a different reason. And the Minister, I think Attorney General, gave a different reason. 4 different positions were canvassed on the issue of herders and farmers clash in Benue State. That's to tell you that there is no synergy amongst the different agencies and segments that make up the presidency, and it's like they are just fooling us. So I'm not surprised that we are seeing this kind of a memo, at this crucial time, at this critical time, when they should be sitting down to plot strategies, ways and means of ensuring that we combat this Boko Haram insurgency, without any let or hindrance. But with this kind of scenario playing out in the presidency, I think both the NSA and the Chief of Staff are overfed. And I think they need to call it quits. Both the Chief of Staff, both the NSA, they should ease themselves out. Conveniently, let us, for God's sake, come up with some result-driven leadership, result-driven persons who will be able to put pay to all these acrimonies that is deliberately dragging the presidency backward.
Mr. Cletus Obun, do you agree? This is not the first time that we are hearing that there are cabals in the presidency, and it brings your party out every time there is a situation that is happening. There is a gap in your party in terms of issues that has been raised. What has raised a lot of concern to a lot of people is the dimension this one has taken. It has to do with national security. Are things falling apart for your party?
Well, let me begin this program by dedicating it to the Niger Delta people for the appointment of Professor Ponde and the acceptance of his being excused from the seat by Joy Nuna, and as well as the former president of the African Development Bank into the NDDC interim committee to say that the Niger Delta people, under the forensic audit on the supervision of the Niger Delta minister, His Excellency Godswill Akpabio, that the Niger Delta people are going to see a new Niger Delta with what is going to come out. Having said that as a dedication and a dedicatory opening, the issue of the NSA and the Chief of Staff, all from Borno State, and the orchestra being dramatized and excessively being put on the public is, for me, a storm in a teacup. What Nigerians should be concerned about is the result of what the security architecture of this country has produced for us. I think for me that is the major concern. And that can come out from this kind of interplay from not even major, because the NSA, the security chiefs, the Chief of Staff, I think are dancing on the grave of those who have lost their lives and lost family and have been orphaned. And each morning I pray, I say to God that He should give us the opportunity to help the poor and the needy, the orphans and the widows. But this consciously and deliberate effort to orphan children and to widow women, and then people come in here to talk about power play, for me is the height of sadism. I do think that even the PDP shouldn't play up the issue of what is happening, because if, for instance, a Christian and a Muslim from the northeast and northwest or southwest and southeastern Nigeria were involved in this intercourse, this altercation, this dramatic, tragic drama that is wasting lives and wasting Nigeria's time and energy, I'm sure they would have read political and religious meanings into it. Today, 2 brothers from Borno State, where the heat of the insurgency is, are engaged in this. I do think Nigerians should be more sober than politicizing this. I've heard somebody say that APC taught PDP how to dramatize and politicize insurgency and the war against it. I do think that if such things ever happened, for Christ's sake, for the drop of every one blood, Nigerians should be sober, should be more reflective, and should be more humane and humanized and indeed humbled by what is happening in the Northeast.
Mr. Auburn, let me butt in quickly. Sorry, apologies, and let me throw this question in. What does it portray of the government of the day? Because if you say it's been played up, but you're forgetting the fact that this was leaked in the first place. So a lot of the times you wonder what has happened in the background when things like this have not come to light. But the big question is, when you have the NSA angry with the chief of staff on how things are being run as regarding the national security advisor, does it also not underline the fact that when the PDP has criticized that the president is not in charge, does this kind of situation not throw more emphasis on that particular position?
In fact, the question I want to say is that this action or this incident and this leaks memo confirms what the opposition have been saying about the president and the presidency. I will say this to you first as a Nigerian, and I insist on this, and this must be underlined, that yesterday on this program, I was supposed to be here. I couldn't get here, one, because I flew in from Calabar to Abuja. I didn't have a car to bring me here. I had to come by a keke to this place. I had to come by a motorbike because I'm not living in Abuja. Now, what that tells you is that the synergy of those who ought to even manage the information from the presidency down to those who are handling these issues have had a crack. And I think it is the duty of the opposition to point this out, that they are doing it, they are doing nothing extra. It is in their duty and within their purview to do so. But about the presidency not doing this, I pity Mr. President a great deal, because his officers are letting him down by this kind of leakages. It's not the first time. We saw it in the Iran gate. We saw it in the leaked memos of some presidents in the United States who even had to resign at a point. And we have a lot of things that happened, even to John Poindexter, the Minister of Defense, when we had the arms for hostages deal in Iran and Iraq, and between the U.S. and Iran. All that shows that even the height of securities on earth have suffered this kind of leakages.
Mr. Auburn, are you saying that invariably the president is not directly in charge? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I am saying on the contrary is that the president is being let down by his managers.
Okay, let me ask.
That is the point I'm making. That his managers are letting him down, and those who are willing to assist this government are not in place to do so. But I do think that it is about the security and lives of Nigerians rather than the politics of it that should concern Nigerians. That if these two persons from Borno State are Muslims are doing this at the presidency and at this height, at this level, then something is fundamentally wrong, and the president has to readjust this and bring in hands that can handle the situation that, as we find it today. For me to...
Mr. Auburn, just a moment. Let's bring Mr. Afegbua back into the conversation. Mr. Afegbua, react to what Mr. Auburn has said tonight. Yes. Your party has perhaps said a lot. And from what has happened today, this is not the first. I mean, we've seen a situation where a president, in the case of former President Jonathan, where a chief of staff was laid off. In this kind of instance, is anybody in the wrong? You've been in government before. Lead us to break with your comment in about a minute.
Well, I think what is obvious is that the country is perpetually in a state of flux, and the presidency has become the architect of that perpetual state of flux. And how do I mean? Once you have a chief executive of a company who does not have his hand on the issues that factorize the company, issues that relate to operations and activities of the company, you are likely going to have scenario where there will be unhealthy rivalry and interplay of forces amongst, his own staff or choosing executives as the case may be. In this case, we're talking about the security of the country. And the National Security Advisor raised very salient issue that the interference of the Chief of Staff has had its own untoward, impact against the successes that should have been recorded in the fight against insurgency. I think that should be the critical operative word. You see, it is not about playing
All right.
politics with anything. It is about the fact that those who are actually supposed to be the architects, who are supposed to be the architects of this whole process, are also not having the best of times to relate,
Mr.
communicate,
Afegua,
and work together and create that synergy that is required to drive the national narrative.
Mr. Afegua, let's take a breather and we'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll get talking more on some of what Mr. Mongono has said and the implications. We'll take a break, and when we come back, my panel will continue on that conversation and the implications for Nigeria. We'll also talk about the internal crisis in the APC. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So you can see right there behind me what has been said to be a crack in the presidency. You see, a man that advises the president on the security matters is accusing the president's right-hand man, the chief of staff, of interfering or meddling in the issues of national security. What does this mean? It's a dilemma for the man who is in the midst of it, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. So what is the implication of all of these, and what can we do? Is it also a coincidence that in December of 2019, that is when this letter was referenced? And at just about that time is when we started to see a rise in the spate of attacks in the country. Does it concern or bother you as a critical mind in the country? Let's get back to it and find solution to what has become a domestic presidential matter. My panel tonight on the program, Mr. Cletus Oben is a chieftain of the APC and a former lawmaker, and Mr. Kasim Afegua, though of the APC those days, but is a member of the PDP and a spokesperson of the PDP presidential campaign. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Like they say, I mean, at some point, I know both of you would have had something to do in the APC before you jump ship, Mr. Afegua. But in Nigeria, you often will find...
You may not realize that the reason why I left the APC was because of the observing competence of the presidency and what have you. Because I can't imagine a situation in a political party that will not have platforms where you can constructively engage, you can collectively bargain on issues and all of that, and strike a strategic outcome. The APC, as it were, I sympathize with Cletus Obum. He comes every time. He narrated how he came from Calabar, climbing Kekena, Pep, and Okada to get to this platform. That should not be the calling of a member of the party. I think the party has its own hierarchy. He has his respective officers. The public secretary is there, and what have you. But he is just coming just to cover up the gaps being created by his party. In this case, with respect to what the issue we are discussing, the presidency has kept silent since the memo leaked. It's like they're at sea. They don't understand what the issue, how to respond to issues. There's a whole lot of communication gap. So this presidency is suffering from crass incompetence. We have said it time and time again. The country has been dragged back to the analog posturing of the president in the 21st century, where you need people who are dynamic in thinking, dynamic in reasoning, dynamic in taking initiative, that to provide solutions to problems that confront the country. Whether you like it or not, the country is in a state of almost lawlessness. Whether you like it, it's a state of anarchy, a state where every day it is blood, blood, blood. And Nigerians are becoming apprehensive on a daily basis. Yet you have two chieftains, executives of the presidency who are overfed, now telling us to come and start washing their plates. It's ridiculous. If the insurgency in the northeast does not bother them, then it worries us as Nigerians that they have exported this insurgency to other parts of the country, and there's so much of killing going on everywhere. Just on your news now, I saw 4 soldiers being killed in Bayelsa. Delta State 2 days ago, 8 persons were killed. And it's like that. Kaduna, 26 were killed. Every day it is blood on their hands, and yet they can't sit back and articulate position that will take us out of this morass.
All right, I wanted to answer this question quickly because I would like Mr. Cletus Oben, apologies please, to react to what you said. One of the reasons why we extended invitation to you on this program is because you have served in a government before, and you know how government bureaucracies work. you know how powerful or the roles of a chief of staff. From what the NSA has raised, has the chief of staff done anything wrong?
Well, the whatever operates around the chief executive of the state or the federation depends entirely on the body language, the leadership style of the chief executive. If a chief executive wants his chief of staff to be so powerful because of his own incompetencies, that can be granted. If he wants the NSA to perform his responsibility based on issues of security, that's also to be granted. But what is critical is for every executive of the presidency to know where the buck stops. If the box, if you know your schedule,
Mr. Afegbua, with the understanding of the workings of government, Mr. Afegbua, with the understanding of the workings of government, in this very case we're talking about,
yes.
I don't want us to be abstract in our analysis. Is the chief of staff wrong?
Yes.
Did he actually meddle? Is the allegation of the NSA right?
Yes. Yes, the chief of staff overreached his bounds, because if I follow what the NSA wrote, he said he carries out directives that are not emanating from the president. That means he's taking his own initiative. And that is wrong in this case with respect to security matters. The National Security Advisor has to coordinate all the agencies, all the service chiefs, and what have you, and report directly to the president, and not the chief of staff. So if the chief of staff is presiding over meetings without clearance from the president, it means that he's building empire around himself and want to be so powerful as if he were an alternative president.
All right. Mr. Obon, I'd like you to react, because then it bothers the man, because if you are doing the analysis, you look at when some of this insecurity situation is rising again, and we're seeing the space going up, and the question you ask is around the time that letter was written by the NSA. Is it coincidental that this is happening at that time? And how would you react? Do you think that chief of staff was wrong or is wrong in this case?
Well, this is not a case of who is right and who is wrong. Where we are, I insist, is a national calamity. It is tragic enough. It is tragic enough that we are having this bloodletting across the country. When we hear of bloodletting arising from election cases in Kogi, in Bayelsa, in Rivers, and hear about banditry in Katsina, Borno, and Zamfara, we must have to first distinguish these facts. About the chief of staff and the NSA. The NSA is a professional soldier. He is a professional soldier. So his professionalism and background, his pedigree, will not permit him to accept certain things that interfere with his line of duty. And his line of duty is defined not just by the president, but the exigencies of a daily occurrences and his adjustment to those occurrences and events that have shaped our national security architecture. Having said that, the chief of staff, from the beginning of this administration, if you remember, the president says, nobody can talk to me except through the chief of staff. Having created that caveat and having shielded the chief of staff and put him as the gatekeeper to his office and to his inner chambers and his recesses and his thinking, it has become difficult that you are bound to have a clash, and this clash was only waiting to happen. It was a time bomb waiting to happen. It has now happened. It is for him, the president, to redefine and reshape his architecture and redefine who an NSA is and who a chief of staff is. Therefore, I think as a party, I will not come out here in the open. I do think that as a party, it hurts us a lot, and it's hurting the country, and I do think that we cannot be so mindless and so sadistic not to take the sentiments of Nigerians and their pain into consideration. I will participate in the process of trying to ensure that there is a synergy within the presidency such that what comes out, I have said on this program time and again and elsewhere, that there is a problem with the management of information from the presidency. And that has become the problem and the albatross of this party and of this government.
Let's close this program.
Up to yesterday, up to this
let's
morning, we are
close
working
this
on
session
that.
of the program, Mr. Obon. And I'd like you to help me in 20 seconds or 30 seconds, if you may. And I give this instance. On this note, I want both of you to help me in 30 seconds each. This is not the first instance that we're seeing some kind of high-level disagreement. We're still with the chief, the head of service, We've seen the wife of the president coming out in the public to show her anger in some of these issues. What does it tell about the internal working within the presidency? In 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, let me say that in concluding this segment of the arguments, of the debate, of the discourse this night, I want to say that the impression being created is not exactly what is transpiring within the presidency. I am not here, I'm not a spokesman for the president. I speak first as a Nigerian and second as a party official and thirdly as a committed Democrat and progressive who has taken his life. As I speak to you, I have been threatened more than 5 times for coming on these programs. I am under threat as I talk to you. But it does not matter to me if what I can contribute to my country will lead to my exit, rather than stay and live in a country in which I have to say nothing and do nothing when things are going wrong. History and heaven will not forgive me if I do that. Therefore, what is happening in the presidency now calls for a reflection and readjustment by the president, the presidency, and his managers into a situation where Nigerians must see the president.
We need to wrap this up now. Let Mr. Afegbua, 30 seconds, Mr. Afegbua. Historically speaking, some of the instances I've given, what does it tell about the presidency? 30 seconds, please.
Well, I told you earlier on that this presidency is one that is tactless, that is clueless, and that lacks the competence to manage all the contending issues that confront us as a nation. This is not the time for rhetoric. This is not the time for blame game. They are supposed to sit down and articulate ways and means, to confront the behemoth problems that is confronting us in the country, and to that extent provide solutions. Nigeria want to see a presidency that is responsive, that is proactive. But if the chief operators of the presidency are now at loggerheads, they are now at each other's throat. You can imagine why the bloodletting has continued unabated.
We've got to leave it at that, Mr. Afegbua, but I must sincerely thank both of you. Mr. Kasim Afegbua, a spokesperson of the PDP presidential campaign at the 2019 election, and Mr. Mr. Cletus Obun, chieftain of the APC and a former lawmaker. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming in.